with our yellow yarn, we're going to make a slip knot by wrapping the yarn around our finger to make a loop, and then pulling the tail of the yarn through the center of that loop. Put your hook in and adjust. Now we're going to chain 4. So we yarn over and pull our yarn through the loop to chain 1, yarn over and chain 2, yarn over, chain 3, and yarn over, chain 4. Now we're going to slip stitch into this first chain to make a loop. So put your hook through the chain, pull your yarn through, and then pull your yarn through the next loop to slip stitch. Now we're going to single crochet 6 into the center of this ring. So find the center of the ring, and don't single crochet through the chains, but through the center of the chains. Put your hook through, and pull your yarn back through, so that you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops for a single crochet. Now we're going to repeat that 5 more times. So we single crochet 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have just single crocheted 6. Now we're going to do an increase round. When we increase, we single crochet 2 in one stitch so that we increase. Right now we have 6 stitches, and we're going to increase to 12 stitches, so we're going to increase in every single one of these stitches. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, and then in that same stitch, we go back through and single crochet 2. In the next stitch, we single crochet 3, and in that same stitch, we increase for 4. In the next stitch, single crochet 5, and in the same stitch, increase for 6. In the next stitch, 7, and increase for 8. In the next stitch, 9, and increase for 10. In the next stitch, 11, and increase for 12. So now we have 12 stitches. In the next round, we're going to do another increase round, but this time we're going to increase from 12 to 18. So whenever we're increasing, for this first part, we're going to be increasing by units of 6. So we're going to increase 6 stitches in every increase round. So this time we're going to go from 12 to 18. And the way we do that is we single crochet 1, increase 1. Single crochet 1, increase 1. Another way to think of it is that every multiple of 3 is going to be an increase stitch. So our increase stitches are going to be stitches 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. So in this first stitch, we single crochet 1. In the next stitch, we single crochet 2, and our increase in the same stitch for 3. In the next stitch is 4. In the next stitch is 5, and in the same stitch is our increase for 6. Next is 7. Next is 8, and in the same stitch our increase for 9. 10, 11, and in the same stitch our increase for 12. 13, 14, and in the same stitch our increase for 15. 16, 17, and in the same stitch our increase for 18. And as you can see, our work has started to kind of look a little bit like a hexagon. We have 6 flat sides and 6 corners. This hexagon shape coming out is how you know that you're increasing at the right places, because the corner parts are where we increase every time. So if you notice that your work is starting to look like a hexagon, that means you're increasing in the right places. If your work is not starting to look like a hexagon, that's fine. Just as long as you count your stitches and you have the number of stitches that we need, it should be fine. But just for your own awareness, if you notice that's looking like a hexagon, that's good. That means you're doing it right. Alright, so in this next round, we're going to increase from 18 to 24. And we're going to increase on every multiple of 4. So we're going to single crochet 1, 2, and 3, and in the same stitch, increase for 4. So it's 2 single crochets, 1 increase. Every multiple of 4 is an increase. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, and in the same stitch, our increase for 4. 5, 6, 7, and in the same stitch our increase for 8. 9, 10, 11, and in the same stitch our increase for 12. 13, 14, 15, and in the same stitch our increase for 16. 17, 18, 19, and in the same stitch our increase for 20. 21, 22, 23, and in the same stitch, our last increase of this round, 24. So now we've just gone from 18 stitches to 24 stitches, and in the next round, we're going to increase from 24 stitches to 30 stitches. This means that we're going to increase on every multiple of 5. So a good way to think about this is every round, the number you increase on is going to increase by 1. So, for example, the first round we increased on every multiple of 2, then in the next round we increased on every multiple of 3, then in this last round we increased on every multiple of 4, in the next round we're going to increase on multiples of 5, and then 6, and then 7. So always 1 up. And this will be helpful for you if you ever make, any amigurumi, or you see something that you want to make and you don't have a pattern. Once you learn kind of the pattern of increasing, you'll pretty much be able to make just about any amigurumi. Alright, so now we're going to increase from 24 to 30 stitches, increasing on multiples of 5. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and our increase for 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, and in the same stitch our increase for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and in the same stitch our increase for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and in the same stitch our increase for 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and in the same stitch our increase for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and in the same stitch our last increase for 30. So we've just increased to 30 stitches, and as you can see our hexagon shape is becoming more pronounced. That means we're doing it right. Alright, so the next round we're going to increase from 30 stitches to 36 stitches. So we're going to increase on every multiple of 6, which would be 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and 36. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the same stitch our increase for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and in the same stitch our increase for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and in the same stitch our increase for 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and in the same stitch our increase for 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and in the same stitch our increase for 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and in the same stitch our increase for 36. So that was the end of the round, and we now have 36 stitches. In the next round, we're going to increase from 36 to 42, and this will be our last increase round for this beginning part. So once again, we're going to increase 6 stitches, and we're going to increase on multiples of 7, so that would be increasing at 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, and 42. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and in the same stitch our increase for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and in the same stitch our increase for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and in the same stitch our increase for 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and in the same stitch our increase for 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and in the same stitch our increase for 35. 36. Oopsies. 37. 38. 39. 40. 41. And in the same stitch, our increase for 42. And so for now, we are all done increasing. Now, next what we're going to do is we're just going to single crochet continuously around for 7 rounds. So 7 rounds is actually 294 stitches, but I find that when I'm counting to 294, it's very easy for me to lose my place. Somebody can come in and ask you a question, and then you go back to your work and you're like, oh, geez, where was I? So in this case, what I like to do is actually just take a piece of yarn or a stitch marker or something and mark my beginning place, and then just crochet around until I have 7 rounds and I finish, about the same place. So what's going to happen is I'm going to single crochet continuously around. Then after I get so far up from the stitch marker, if I count down and there's 7, and my starting and ending place is about straight up, from there I think, okay, yeah, that's good. That's good enough. Close enough. So, yeah, I'm just going to mark my starting point using a piece of yarn. Or if you have actual dedicated stitch markers, that's good too. I just like to use yarn. So we just single crochet 1 in every stitch continuously around for 7 rounds. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just like that, just 1 in every round, continuously around for 7 rounds. Now I'm going to let you do that, and I will meet you back here once I have 7 rounds. Alright, so I've come to the end of my 7 rounds. So if I count up from here, from my stitch marker, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. 7 rounds up. So that's what I meant before when I said, just look straight up, and if you have 7 rounds, just make sure that you're not counting this way, or it's going to look like you have 8 rounds. Count up this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. Okay? And one thing that I want to mention is that from here on out, this is going to be pretty important. Make sure that you're crocheting from the outside. So you're sticking your hook from the outside to the inside, pulling your yarn through and crocheting along the outside. So for those of you who have your work turned like this and you're crocheting from the inside to the outside, that's going to start to be a problem for now. So if you're going like this, and you're crocheting with your hook starting on the inside and then pulling your yarn back to the inside, actually just take your work and flip it the other way around. Because from here on out, we're going to start decreasing. Which means, so right now we've increased, and then, so we've got like kind of a wide section forming, but now we're going to start decreasing, so it's going to start getting more narrow to form the head, and if you're crocheting from the inside to the outside, that's going to make your work very difficult from here on out. So just make sure that you're coming from the outside. That's pretty important. Okay, so now we're going to do a decrease round. And just like we did before where we were increasing on multiples of 7, multiples of 6, multiples of 5, we're going to be decreasing that way too. So we're going to start decreasing on every multiple of 7 for 1 round, then we're going to decrease on every multiple of 6, then decrease on every multiple of 5. Pretty much the reverse of what we were doing up here, we're going to do down here. And I will go over slowly how to do a decrease, because I do a very special kind of decrease, which takes a little bit of practice, I think, to get the hang of, maybe. But yeah, I will demonstrate that. So, for the first 5 stitches, we're just going to single crochet. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I say we decrease on every multiple of 7 because the last stitch involved in the decrease is a multiple of 7, but really we're decreasing on every multiple of 7 and also every stitch before that. So in this case, number 6 and number 7 are going to be decreased. And let me zoom in. And if you already know how to do an invisible decrease, just bear with me for a moment while I explain this to some viewers who maybe are not as familiar with it. So right here we have stitch number 6 and stitch number 7. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our hook through the front loop only of stitch number 6. So here, each stitch has 2 loops, right? Let me put my hook through both loops. So each stitch has 2 loops. And in this case, we only want to go through the front loop. So front loop, through the front loop of number 6, and also through the front loop of number 7. So we get both loops on our hook like that. So we have 3 loops on our hook, like this. Okay, so let me just show you one more time. You go through the front loop of stitch number 6, and the front loop of stitch number 7. Okay, and now we yarn over and pull our yarn, sorry, let me try that one more time. We yarn over, or we put our hook through the front loops, we yarn over and then pull our yarn through both of those loops. So we have the front loop of stitch number 6 and the front loop of stitch number 7, and we've pulled our yarn through both. And then we yarn over again and pull through both loops to make a single crochet. And so essentially what we've just done there is we've taken 2 stitches and then turned them into 1 stitch. And this is going to cause our work to gradually become more narrow. So we've just done stitch number 6 and number 7. And when I'm counting, I like to count, even though I'm decreasing down to 36, I like to count up to 42. That way I'm aware of the stitches that I've decreased. So if you notice me counting to 42, or counting 2 stitches when I've made 1, that's why. Okay, so we've just done 7. In the next stitch, we single crochet for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13 and 14 are decreased together. So we put our hook through the front loop of number 13 and through the front loop of number 14, pull our yarn through, single crochet. Next is 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then 20 and 21 are decreased together. So put your hook through the front loop of number 20 and through the front loop of number 21, single crochet. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and then number 27 and number 28 are going to get decreased together. So put your hook through the front loops of both of those and decrease. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and then 34 and 35 are going to go together. So through the front loop of 34 and through the front loop of 35. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and numbers 41 and 41 and 42 are going to decrease together. So through the front loop of number 41 and through the front loop of number 42. Alright, so we've just completed our first decrease round, and so we've gone from having 42 stitches to having 36 stitches. So if you would count all the way around, you should have 36 stitches now. And from here on out, you're going to notice that this head is going to gradually get more narrow. So now we're going to do another decrease round. We're going to decrease from 36 to 30 stitches, and that means we're going to decrease on every multiple of 6. So every multiple of 6 and also the number before that, which doesn't really have a pattern. So as you're counting along, so as you're crocheting along, you're going to start approaching your multiple of 6, and just keep that in mind. So when you decrease on a multiple of 6, you're actually going to be decreasing on number 5 and number 6, number 11 and number 12, number 17 and number 18, like that. So just think ahead to what your multiple is. What your multiple is going to be, and be prepared to stop one in advance. So first we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and then number 5 and number 6 are going to be single crochet. They are going to be decreased together. So put your hook through the front loop of number 5 and through the front loop of number 6. And now we're going to move on to number 7, 8, 9, 10, and then number 11 and number 12 are going to get decreased together. So front loop of 11 and through the front loop of 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, and then 17 and 18 are decreased together. So put your hook through the front loop of 17 and through the front loop of 18. 19, 20, 21, 22, and then 23 and 24 are decreased together. So front loop of 23 and front loop of 24. 25, 26, 27, 28, and then 29 and 30 are decreased together. So through 29 and 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and then 35 and 36 are decreased together. So we have 35 and through 36. Ooh. Sorry. I apologize if I was, not in the frame of the camera. I think I was in the frame of the camera, but if I wasn't in the frame of the camera, I'm really sorry. Sometimes when I'm crocheting, I'm looking down at my hands, and so I don't notice if I'm, slowly, and off in the back, and like that. Sorry. Okay. Actually, I'm going to move my camera a little bit forward, so that's not an issue anymore. There we go. And now I'm going to be too high sometimes. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So, we've just decreased from 36 to 30. Now we're going to do another decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 30 to 24. So we're going to decrease on every multiple of 5 and the stitch before that as well. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are decreased together. 6, 7, 8, then 9 and 10 are decreased together. Ooh, my yarn is splitting in half. Okay, one more time. 9 and 10. There we go. 11, 12, 13, then 14 and 15 are decreased together. 16, 17, 18, and then 19 and 20 are decreased together. 21, 22, 23, and then 24 and 25 are decreased together. 26, 27, 28, and then 29 and 30 are decreased together. Okay, so that was our last decrease for this round. Now we're going to do one more decrease round. Currently we have 24 stitches, and we're going to decrease down to 18. This will be our last decrease round for this portion. We're going to do some more decreases at the end, but this is the last for the head. So now we're going to decrease on every multiple of 4 and the stitch before that. So we single crochet 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 are decreased together. 5, 6, and then 7 and 8 are decreased together. 9, 10, and then 11 and 12 are decreased together. 13, 14, and then 15 and 16 are decreased together. 17, 18, then 19, and 20 are decreased together. 21, 22, and then 23 and 24 are decreased together. So now that I've done my last round of decreases, I like to count just to make sure, be 100% sure that I have the requisite number of stitches. So I've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, that's correct. So now we're going to make the face. So what I like to do here is pull up a long tail, long loop like this, and then take either my stitch marker or my piece of yarn, whatever you were using, and then pull the loop down tight like this. This way you've got this piece of yarn here, so no matter how hard you pull, it might pull a loop through like this, but it's never going to come completely undone, which is what we want. So now we're going to make the face. And the first part of the face that I usually like to make is the smile. That way, I used to do it where I would put the eyes in and then I would crochet in the smile, but every now and then, one eye would be more off to the side than the other eye. So I like to make the smile, or I like to make the mouth, and then place the eyes relative to the mouth. That way, everything is evenly spaced, because if you're a little bit OCD like me, things not being perfectly even will drive you insane. So we're going to take steps to make sure that everything is even. Okay, so taking our black yarn, we thread our needle. And sometimes it goes smoothly for me, and sometimes it doesn't. You can fold it in half, like this, and push it through like that, and that should help it come through a little bit more cleanly. Okay. So since this is Pikachu, his mouth is more like a W shape as opposed to just a standard U-shaped smile. So I like to put the eyes through rows 13, between rows 13 and 14, and I like to put the smile from 14 down to 15. So from the top, I count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So here is row 14, or between row 13 and 14, and down here is between row 14 and 15, and that's where I like to put the smile. Okay, so when you're doing this, you start from the inside out. So you put your yarn through from the inside. Okay? And then since we're going to make it a W shape, I like to think of it this way, to where I will have one stitch between the end part of the W, the middle part of the W, and then the other end. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches from end to end, with an empty stitch between both of the the valleys of the W. I hope that was a good explanation. Sometimes I wonder, as I'm listening to myself speak, I think, ooh, will other people understand what I just meant? Let me zoom in so that you can see. Okay, so I stitch one in here, and then over and down here, so that this one right here is going to be empty. And then I'm going to crochet, or sew into this one up here. So I come in through the back, like this. Okay, and make sure that you're pulling it, taut, but not too terribly tight, not so tight that you're like, rah, or anything, and then it puckers. You want it to be loose, but not too loose, and tight, but not too tight. Okay, and then, so I've come out here, and I'm going to go back in through here. Right, and then I come back out, and again, I apologize if I'm not staying in the frame. Then I come back out in the same place where the mouth began, or the middle part is. And then I go down to this stitch right here. Down and over one. And then up here. not be perfectly symmetrical. I think that won't bother most people. It does bother me, but I'll just have to get over it for today. There we go. So we've sewn in the smile, and now let me zoom out just a little bit. Okay. So now we're going to just tie off our ends. I'm going to cut them like this. Don't make your ends too long, or else what's going to happen is they're going to press, when you're stuffing it, it's going to press against the back and show through. So what I like to do is actually tie it a little bit loose up top like this, and then as I'm stuffing it, I will actually like stuff it with intention, so that I can hide these kind of in the middle, and so they're not pressing against the back like this, because if they press against the back of the mouth, this way you're gonna see black through here, and it's not gonna look as good. Okay. So now we are going to put on the eyes. Okay, so I have some, I think these are 12 millimeter safety eyes. I actually prefer the way 15 millimeter safety eyes look, but 15 millimeter is not as common a size, so they're a little bit harder to find. These are 12 millimeter safety eyes, and you can use these. Okay, so what I like to do is just, okay, so you have two options here, and I go back and forth about which one I like the most, which is to put the eyes along the same row as the top of the mouth, so that they're kind of like in line with the mouth, like that. That can look cute, or you can do it one row up from the mouth. So, like, our mouth ends in this row, and we put the eye, our mouth ends in this row, and we put the eye up into this row. I go back and forth about which one I like more, and I think it really depends on the piece. Sometimes it looks better one way, and sometimes it looks better the other way, so you can just use your own judgment there. But that's the first part. So then what I like to do is, here's the place where we ended the mouth. I usually like to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th stitch from the end of the mouth, I'll put the eye in. And that way it looks like we have 1, 2, 3 empty stitches from the mouth, and then the eye covers 4 and is inserted into number 5. Don't put the back on yet. Wait until you have both eyes in place and then put the backs on, because sometimes you put the eyes into place and you're like, I don't like that. So that's pretty important. Don't put the backs on until you know exactly how you want it to go. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, nice and even. So once you have your eyes in place, if you decide, yeah, I really like it here, then you can put your backs on. I like these here, so I'm going to put my backs on. If this is your first tutorial with me, or even if it's not your first tutorial with me, this is always worth mentioning. When you're putting your backs on, make sure that this, or anything really, like the side of it, this little piece, don't put your back on in a way that's going to snag anything under the back, because these are going to be really secure. So even though you shouldn't give this to anybody who will put it in their mouth, it is actually quite secure. So once this back is on, it's not coming off, at least not without a huge amount of effort. So if you put this back on and this little side of it or this little tail is underneath the back, it's not coming out. So you're going to have it permanently stuck, folded in half or something like that, and you don't want that. So make sure that when you're putting your back on, it's completely clear, and there's nothing around there that's going to get stuck underneath. So you just put your back on. There we go. And I got them on. So there we pull our little marker up and pull up our loop, and we can continue to crochet the rest of the body. So from here, what we're going to do is increase. And we're going to increase in every single stitch. So right now we have 18 stitches. And after we're done increasing, we're going to increase, we're going to have 36 stitches. So we're going to do an increase in every single stitch so that we can go from 18 to 36, because 18 times 2 is 36. Math. Okay, so, but this increase is actually going to be a special kind of increase. I will zoom in so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. This is going to be a front loop increase. So once again, we have 2 loops in a stitch, and our increasing this time is actually going to be in only the front loop, but we're going to leave the back loop unworked. The reason why we're doing this is because we want kind of an abrupt change in direction with the direction of the stitches. So right now, the stitches are all kind of curving down in, and we want it to suddenly go out. So we want it to go from in to out, kind of abruptly. So we are going to do this in the front loop only, and that's going to help with that sudden direction change. So go through the front loop of your first stitch and single crochet 1, and then in the same stitch, increase for 2. In the next stitch, 3, and increase for 4. In the next stitch, 5, and increase for 6. In the next stitch is 7, and increase for 8. And just keep following that pattern until the end when you have 36 stitches. I'm going to just count and not be quite so worried. So here we go. 9, 10, 11, 12, and 36. Okay, so now we are going to put our stitch marker back in. And what we're going to do is we're just going to single crochet continuously around for 5 rounds. So just like we did before, you just put your stitch marker in and single crochet all the way around until you have 5 up from your stitch marker. Okay, so I've just come to the end of my 5 rounds. rounds, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds up from my stitch marker. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stuff the head. So just put your stitch marker through your loop and pull it down like we did before so that your stitches don't come loose. And now you need to take your toy stuffing or your yarn scraps, whichever you have. I have yarn scraps, just lots and lots of yarn scraps. And we're going to stuff the head. So what I like to do is take this little, these kind of black tails and pull them out a little bit. And then I'm going to put my stuffing in. Okay, and now that I've done that, I'm going to tuck these black tails into the middle portion so that it doesn't show through onto the side. Okay, so then you just squish it around until it becomes the shape that you want. Okay, so now we're going to do some more decrease rounds like we did before. And in this next round, we're going to decrease from 36 stitches down to 30 stitches. So we're going to decrease on every multiple of 6 and also the stitch before that. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 are decreased together. 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11 and 12 are decreased together. 13, 14, 15, 16, and then 17 and 18 are decreased together. 19, 20, 21, 22, and then 23 and 24 are decreased together. 25, 26, 27, 28, and then 29 and 30 are decreased together. 31, 32, 33, 34, and then 35 and 36 are decreased together. Alright, so we just decreased from 36 down to 30. Now we're going to decrease from 30 down to 24, which means we're going to decrease on every multiple of 5. So we single crochet 1, 2, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are decreased together. 6, 7, 8, and then 9 and 10 are decreased together. 11, 12, 13, and then 14 and 15 are decreased together. 16, 17, 18, and 19 and 20 are decreased together. 21, 22, 23, and then 24 and 25 are decreased together. 26, 27, 28, and then 29 and 30 are decreased together. Okay, so now we're going to do another decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 24 stitches down to 18 stitches, so we're going to decrease on every multiple of 4. So we single crochet 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 are decreased together. 3 and 4. We have 5, 6, and then 7 and 8 are decreased together. 9, 10, and then 11 and 12 are decreased together. 13, 14, and then 15 and 16 are decreased together. 17, 18, and then 19 and 20 are decreased together. 21, 22, and then 23 and 24 are decreased together. Okay, and now we're going to do our last decrease round, and we're going to decrease from 18 to 12 stitches. So we're going to decrease on every multiple of 3. So we single crochet 1, and then 2 and 3 are decreased together. 4, and then 5 and 6 are decreased together. 7, and then 8 and 9 are decreased together. 10, and then 11 and 12 are decreased together. 13, and then 14 and 15 are decreased together. 16 and then 17 and 18 are decreased together. And we are done with our decreases. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull up and cut, a decent sized tail and then just pull it all the way through like this. Because then once we stuff in here, we're actually going to sew this shut, so it makes a nice clean closing. Okay, so unlike the head, which we stuffed really tightly, we're actually going to understuff this one just slightly so that it will sit flat on the bottom. So, take your toy stuffing or your yarn scraps. And this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because the opening is smaller. And make sure that you don't stuff your tail inside because then it's going to be hard to get out. So you want it stuffed enough at the top so that it keeps its shape nicely, but then towards the bottom, a little understuff. That way, when you close it up, it'll actually flatten out so that your Pikachu will sit up flat. And you can, take your toy stuffing and, kind of push it to the sides so that it kind of fattens it a little bit, because they always look super cute when they're kind of fat. Yeah, that's what we have so far. So now, we are done stuffing it. And you can take your knitting needle and thread. Oopsies, I have lots of little yarn pieces all over the place. So, you take your needle and you thread your tail through. Okay, got it. Okay, so and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to sew as if we're decreasing. So what we're going to do is stick our needle through the front loop of your first stitch and through the front loop of the stitch next to it and just pull it right on through. And then again, through the front loop of this first stitch, and then through the front loop of the stitch next to it, and pull it through. And 1, and 2, like this. And you don't actually have to do it in sections of 2, you can just pull it on through one at a time. It'll close the same either way, but just make sure that you're going to the front loop only, because that's going to create a nice, clean closing for us. And it's going to make it look as good on the bottom as it does on the top, because sometimes, or what would happen when I was first crocheting is I would just, with my hook, decrease all the way until it was closed, and it kind of created like a really crappy looking closing. So here, you can see it's just nice and tight, and it looks similar to how it does up top. If you were to do this with a hook, it wouldn't look quite so nice. And I know that it's on the bottom and nobody's going to take it and be like, what's going on down here? But, just for your own knowledge, knowing that it looks nice on the bottom, that's always good to have. So then you just take your yarn tails and you stick it through and put it through and have it come out anywhere between any stitches. And then you put your needle back through in the same stitch that it came out, so that you're not actually sewing anything, you're just kind of weaving your yarn tails into the body. So we do that one more time. And this actually helps your piece not to come unraveled, because we're not going to be tying any knots or anything like that, we're just going to weave it like this. And then you just kind of pull it tight and snip it, but don't actually cut the sides, and then you just kind of roll it around. And there you go. And your tail should not come loose, your piece shouldn't come unraveled. I know, because I actually put one of these in the washing machine once, and it didn't come unraveled, so it's pretty secure in there. And now we have the body. Okay, so now we're going to crochet the arms. I've already made one, so I'm going to show you how to make one, and then you can rewind and watch again to make the second one. So, what we're going to do is make a slip knot like we always do. And then chain 4. 2, 3, 4. And then slip stitch into the first chain to form a loop like we did in the beginning. And then we are going to single crochet 6 into the middle of the loop. So put your hook through, single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you've done any of my other tutorials, you should be very, very, very familiar with this process. This is pretty much how we start everything. Alright, so now we're going to do an increase round, and we're going to increase from 6 stitches to 9 stitches. So we're going to single crochet 1, increase, single crochet 1, increase. Another way to think of that is increasing on every multiple of 3. So we single crochet 1, 2, and then in the same stitch or increase for 3, 4, and here we go, 5, and in the same stitch or increase for 6, 7, 8, and in the same stitch or increase for 9. Okay, so now we're just going to single crochet continuously around for 4 rounds. Another way you can think about that is just single crochet 36 stitches. So just single crochet continuously around for 36 stitches. 1, 2, and 36. And we are done. So now we just slip stitch, and then cut, kind of a long tail, just long enough so that you can use it to stuff the arm. So that's probably good. Pull it through. And then I like to go back through and then pull my yarn back to the inside so that it faces inside and I don't get a lump. And then just take your tail and stuff the arm. And sometimes it helps to use the back of your hook. Okay. So now we have 2 arms. Next we're going to crochet the leg. And the leg is very, very similar to the arm, it's just a little shorter. So, once again, we make a slip knot. And again, we're going to chain 4, just like we always do. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oops, I somehow messed that up. And 4. And once again, we're going to slip stitch into the first chain to make a loop. And this time, instead of crocheting 6, we're actually just going to crochet 5 into the center. So single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, we're going to increase in every single stitch so that we go from 5 stitches to 10 stitches. So, in the first stitch, single crochet 1 and 2. Next is 3 and 4. Next is 5 and 6. And next is 7 and 8. And last is 9 and 10. So it just increased to 10. And now, just like with the arm, we're just going to single crochet continuously around. This time we're going to single crochet continuously around for 2 rounds, or 20 stitches. 1, 2, and 20. Alright, so we are all done. So we just slip stitch, and then pull a little bit of a tail, just a little bit, and break it. And pull it through, and then pull it back through to the inside. And stuff your foot. So there we go, we have the feet. Next, we're going to make the ears. So for this one, we need our black yarn to start. And just like before, we are going to make a slip knot. And just like before, we're going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And just like before, we're going to slip stitch into the first chain to make a loop. And again, just like before, we're going to single crochet 6 into the center of the loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we're going to single crochet 6 again for 1 round. So just single crochet 6 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so for this next round, we're going to increase, and we're going to increase from 6 to 9. So we're going to single crochet 1, increase, single crochet 1, increase, or increase on every multiple of 3. So in the first stitch, we single crochet 1, in the next stitch 2, and in the same stitch, our increase for 3. Then 4, 5, and in the same stitch, our increase for 6. 7, 8, and in the same stitch, our increase for 9. Okay, so now we're going to single crochet continuously around for 3 rounds, or 27 stitches. So just single crochet continuously around for 27 stitches. 1, 2. Okay, so right now I have 22 stitches, not quite 27. But what we need to do now is prepare to change colors, because we're about to change to our yellow yarn. So we need to start incorporating the yellow yarn. So what we're going to do is place the yellow yarn between our hook and our working yarn so that it's in the middle. And then we're going to keep crocheting. So let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. It might be hard to see with the black yarn. So it's in between like that. And in the next stitch for 23, we pull our yarn through like this and then crochet so that this yellow yarn is now in between the stitches. So that's 23, 24, 25, 26, 26, and then for 27 we're going to pull our black yarn through like we normally would, but instead of crocheting the black yarn, we're actually going to, for this last loop that we pull through, take our yellow yarn and pull through like that. And now we've just changed to our yellow yarn. So now what we're going to do is take the black yarn and weave that one in. Sorry, I have my tails in the way. So we're going to continue with our yellow yarn and then weave our black yarn in. So in this next round, we're going to do an increase round. So we're going to increase on every multiple of 4. So we're going to single crochet 2, then increase. So in this first stitch, we single crochet 1, and making sure that our black tail is in between. Next is 2. And this can be a little bit tricky. Next is 3. And in that same stitch, our increase for 4. Okay? And then at this point, I'm actually just going to cut a little bit of a tail from my black yarn and just shove it down into here so that I can stuff the top of the ear with black, and we can continue without having to worry about the black yarn. And changing colors can be a little bit tricky, especially when you're changing colors and then immediately doing an increase round. Okay, so we just did our first increase for 4, and next is 5, 6, 7, and in that same stitch our increase for 8, 9, 10, 11, and in that same stitch our increase for 12. So just reached the end of our round. And next we're going to single crochet around continuously for 2 rounds, which is going to be 24 stitches. So just single crochet until you have 24 stitches. 1, 2, and 23, and 24. Okay, so we've just single crocheted 24. Now for this next round, we're going to do another increase round, and we're going to increase from 12 to 15. So we're going to increase on every multiple of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and in that same stitch, our increase for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and in that same stitch, our increase for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and in that same stitch, our increase for 15. Now, once again, we're going to single crochet continuously around for 2 rounds, and that's 30 stitches. So just single crochet until you have 30 stitches. 1, 2, 29, and 30. Okay, so I've reached the end of my 30 stitches, and we are done. So I'm going to slip stitch. And then again, we're going to use the tail to stuff it, so just pull enough of a tail that you think would be a good amount to stuff it with. And then pull it through. And then pull it back through to the other side. Okay, so we are done, and we have our 2 ears now. Okay, so now we're going to make the red spots for the cheeks. I'm going to show you how to crochet these spots, but if you want, you can also make them out of red felt. If you're making them out of red felt, they're about the size of a US quarter. That's usually how I make them. I just kind of take a quarter and trace them around the outside. So I have a couple of pieces of money here, because I know I have viewers from a couple countries. So a very dirty US quarter, US or Canadian quarter, or a British 10 pence piece is about the same size, and then this is a Japanese 100 yen piece. Little smaller, yeah, about these sizes. This is, I don't know, maybe 1.5 centimeters across, I think. But yeah, any of these currencies is a good size. If you've never been to any of these countries or seen any of this money, I don't know how better to explain it, maybe 1.5 centimeters in diameter, something like that, if you're making it out of felt. If you're not making it out of felt, and you're making it out of yarn, then just follow the instructions I'm about to give. So, starting with your red yarn, you make a slip knot like we always do, and this whole process is going to be extremely familiar to you because it's pretty much the same process we use for everything. So we chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and slip stitch in the first chain to make a loop, and then we single crochet 6 into the center of the loop. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6. Now we're going to increase in every stitch around so that we have 12. So in the first stitch, you single crochet 1 and 2. Next is 3 and 4. Next is 5 and 6. Next is 7 and 8. Next is 9 and 10. And last one is 11 and 12. Now we're done. So you just slip stitch into the next stitch and cut, a decent sized tail because we're going to use this tail to sew it onto the face. Pull that through and we have our cheeks. Okay, so now we're going to make the tail and we need our brown yarn to start. And this one is going to be a little bit different than the other pieces that we've made. So I'll try and explain it best I can. So, you make a slip stitch, like we always do. And now we're going to chain 3. So we yarn over and chain 1, 2, and 3. And now we're just going to go back across and single crochet. So in the next chain from your hook, you pull your yarn through and single crochet 1. And then in this last stitch, we single crochet, or last chain, we single crochet 2, right there. Okay. So just single crochet 2. And now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. So now in your first single crochet, you go back through and single crochet 1. And then in this next stitch, forward 2. Okay. And then we chain 1 and turn. And at this point, we're going to do one more round of brown, but we're going to start incorporating our yellow yarn at this point so that it'll be easy to change to that color. So just like we did before, we're going to put our yellow yarn between our working yarn and the hook and just crochet it in, just like we did with the ears. So we single crochet 1 and then 2. Okay, so we just single crochet 2. And now, instead of chaining 1, we're actually going to chain 3. So we're going to chain 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to turn. And in the second chain from our hook, not the first chain, but the second chain, because sometimes when we turn, it's really easy to actually crochet into the chain on your hook, which you don't want to do. So crochet into this second chain from your hook. And single crochet 1. And then in the next chain, we have 2. And then we move on to our stitches. And now we're going to change to our yellow yarn. So what we're going to do is put our hook through this first stitch and pull up our brown yarn and then yarn over with our yellow yarn and pull that through both loops. There we go. And then in this next, or this last stitch right here, single crochet 1. So we just changed to yellow. And now for the brown, we're actually going to cut kind of a longer tail because we're going to use this tail to sew the stripes. So cut kind of a long tail, and then go back to your yellow yarn. And chain 1 and turn. And then we're going to single crochet 4. So we single crochet 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1 and turn. And now, instead of single crocheting 4 across, we're actually just going to single crochet 2. So here we have 1, and then 2, and now we're going to chain 1 and turn, and this is forming kind of the lightning bolt shape for the tail. So we go back through and single crochet 2. So we have 1 and 2. Okay, so we single crochet 2, and now we're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to turn. And now we're going to, in this next round, single crochet 6. So we're going to single crochet the 2 in our main body and 4 of the chains. And then this 5th chain is going to count as our chain 1 to start the round. So, in your second chain from your hook, go through and single crochet 1. In the next chain for 2. In the next chain, in the next chain is 3. And in this last chain is 4. Now we move on to our main tail for number 5. And last one, if I can get my hook through, 6. Then we chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to single crochet 6 across. So single crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and last one for 6. Okay, and then we chain 1, and we are all done with the tail. So what we're going to do is cut kind of a longer tail because you're going to weave it back through and use it to kind of weave it into the body. So like that. And then pull your yarn through. And then we're going to kind of clean up these areas a little bit. So we need to take our blunt needle and put this tail through. Like that. And now we're just going to kind of weave it through the tail to hide it mostly. But we're just going to bring it down to the base of the tail. This way we can kind of hide it in the body. So make sure that you're weaving in through the stitches so that it's not showing through. Okay. So I've got that tail weaved through, down to the base. And now I'm going to take this other yellow tail, thread my needle, and then also bring this one through, down to the base, right here. And this shorter tail I'm actually just going to cut. Okay, so we brought that tail down to the base. And now we're going to take our long brown tail and do the same thing, just bring it down to the same part of the tail, so that all of our ends are kind of coming out from the same place, or the same general location. Okay. So there we go, we made our tail. Okay, so now we're all done with all the pieces, and we're going to sew them on. I'm going to sew the tail on last, and the rest of these parts on first. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so once again, we need to take our needle, and the first thing I'm going to sew on are these cheeks, since the tails are hanging down. So you just thread your needle. There we go. Thread your needle. And then you just go through the cheek into the body and come out of the body, back up through the cheek, and then over. And then once they're sewn on, you just take your needle and put it through the body and come out anywhere. And then you put your needle back in through that same place where you came out and go over somewhere else. And then one more time, just to make sure it's secure. And then push it down and cut. There we go. Now to sew on, and actually I'm going to take these ears off too. I'm going to take actually all of these parts off. Now for the other side. Okay, so now we're going to sew on the arms. And you can, if you took all your pins out like I did, you can pin the arms back in place before you sew them on. I always recommend pinning everything in place before you sew it on. That way you know it's exactly where you want it to be, because if you sew it on and then decide that you don't like it there, then you have to take it out, and it's just more time efficient to pin it in place and make sure that it's where you like it. Okay, that looks good. So now we are going to thread our needle with our yellow yarn. And before we start sewing, you just go and weave your yarn in just a little bit. That way it doesn't come loose at all. Okay, so maybe just like 2 times, you just weave it in just to make sure that it's securely in there. Okay, so now we sew on the ears. You can position the ears however you like. I've seen people position them so they're kind of like pointing towards the back like this. I've seen people put them more towards the, like, don't put them in the front, they're not horns, they're ears. how low you want to go with it is up to you. I like to put my ears about right here. Okay, and so for sewing on the ears, there actually is a bit of a special technique that I'm going to try and show you. It's a little bit difficult to show. But okay, so we have the 2 loops of our single crochet, right? And normally I would put my needle up through both loops, but actually lately what I'd like to do is just put it through the bottom or back loop only. This prevents it from puckering because I've noticed an issue where my work will start to pucker, which I don't like. And the way I've resolved this is by sewing to the back loop only. That way if it's going to pull, it pulls on the back loop only and leaves the front loops looking nice. And I found that creates kind of a nice finish. I'm trying to show you as best I can, but it's a little difficult. But I think you probably know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. So just sew through the back loops. Alright, and now for the legs. Yeah, so find a place that you like and pin them in place, and then sew them on using the same technique that we used for the ears. Okay, so now we're all done with the yellow portion, so you can weave these yarn tails into the body, and then cut your yarn when you're ready. And then once we're done with that, we will sew on the tail and the stripes, and we will be done. Okay, so now we're going to sew on the tail, and if you want it to be kind of horizontal, like this, you can do that. I actually prefer it to be vertical, like this. So just pin it into place in the middle of the back. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide these extra yarn tails in my body so that they don't get in the way. So thread your needle with these shorter yarn tails and just kind of hide them in the body. And then same thing for this yellow one. Okay, so now that our yarn tails are hidden in the body, we can take our other yarn tail, our long yarn tail, and thread it on through. And sew the tail into place. Okay, so now that the tail is sewn in place, we're going to sew on the stripes. So, let's say go to the row above the tail and off to the side like this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches away from the tail. This is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches apart. So just bring it down there and then back through. Okay. And then we're going to do that one more time, just so that the stripe is nice and thick. And this time when we come out, we're going to come out in the row, not the row directly above, but the next row. And slightly inward, about 2 rows up and 1 stitch over, so that the top stripe is smaller than the back stripe. Or bottom stripe, not back stripe, bottom. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches over. All that through. And one more time, and this time you can just weave your yarn tails into the body. And then when you're satisfied they won't come out, cut your yarn. And then, squish it around so that all the stuffing is where you like it to be. And there we go, we are done with our Amigurumi Pikachu. So as always, if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, on Tumblr. I'm not on Twitter yet, but I'm about to be on Twitter, so keep an eye there. And follow me on Twitter once I get on there. And I will see you in the next tutorial.